Hey everybody, it's Mrs. Gifford here, and I am going to cover lesson 2, solving two-step equations. So grab your math notebook and some paper and something to write with in your calculator, and let's get to it. So your learning target for today is I can solve two-step equations using inverse operations. So we're going to add on from what we just did in lesson 1, and we are going to move into not one-step equations, but two. So again, draw that line down your paper and take a moment to please copy the 5 steps for solving equations to ensure that you have them. The whole idea, remember, is to get the variable on one side of the equal sign all by itself and eventually get it to just be a plain variable. So we're going to draw that balance line, simplify both sides, move variables to one side of the equation, and then do the opposite operation to get the variable by itself. And then it's always a good idea to plug that answer back in to check your work and make sure you did the problem correctly. So pause the video, write those 5 steps down, and when you are ready, go ahead and hit play and we will do our examples. All right, folks, so welcome back. Here are the first 2 examples that we are going to do today. So we're going to solve the equation 3 times C plus 6 equals 18. So again, you're going to draw that balance line right through the equal sign. And then there isn't any simplifying to do on either sides. And I look at number 3. All of the variables are over here on the left-hand side. And so then the next thing I'm going to do is opposite operations to get the variable by itself. Now, if this problem was just 3c equals 18, we'd know we would divide, but we also have this plus 6. So we actually need to get rid of or undo that adding by 6 by doing the inverse or opposite operation, which is subtracting 6. So those 6's cancel, and that leaves us on this left-hand side with 3c is equal to 12. And now we know that when a number is next to a variable, it means to multiply. So to undo that, we need to divide. 12 divided by 3 does give us 4. So our final answer here is C equals 4. And like I said, it's a good idea to check those answers. So I'm going to take 4 and plug it back in, replace the C with 4. And I am going to check to make sure that that equals 18. So I know that 3 plus 4 equals 12. And I also know that 12 plus 6 does equal 18. So this is my actual answer. So I know that my solution, C equals 4, is correct. So we're going to move on to that second example of -4 equals -4d plus 20. And as I'm looking at example 2, the only difference is that the variable is on the right-hand side. Otherwise, we're going to solve this equation exactly the same as we just did the first one. There's nothing to simplify. The variables are on the right-hand side by themselves. So I need to make sure that I get rid of that plus 20, and the inverse or opposite operation of plus 20 is subtraction. And then I'm going to plug -4 minus 20 into my calculator and get -24. And then just like up in number 1, the last step that we have to do is divide by that -4. Remember that anytime that there's a number next to a variable, it means to multiply. So I have to undo that by division. And I'm dividing by -4. So D equals 6 is my solution for this. And to double check, I'm just going to verbalize it. -4 times 6 is -24. And -24 plus 20 does give me that -4. So again, if you need to pause the video to get caught up on the examples at any time, make sure that you're doing that. And if you need to rewind and rewatch again, also that is obviously an option. So looking at examples 3 and 4, I've got 2x equals 8 plus 12 is our next example. So again, I drew my balance line. Oh, I notice in this one that it's not completely simplified. I can actually do the 8 plus 12 first. So I'm going to do that. So that gives me that answer of 2x equals 20. Now, just like in examples 1 and 2, the last thing I have to do is dividing by 2 because I need to get that variable again to be plain. So we're going to divide by 2. So hopefully you're noticing or recognizing that there's kind of a pattern with solving equations. The goal is to get it down so it's just a one-step equation left. And typically the last step is usually going to be either to multiply or divide, just as a little hint. Now, problem number 4 is very similar to problem number 3. I would like you to try this one on your own before I walk through it. So pause the video and work through it. And then when you're ready, press play. All right, so let's take a look at what you got. I notice that I have 7y minus 3y, and I can simplify them to give me 4y equals 16. And then I know that 4 times y equals 16, so I need to divide. And I'm going to divide both sides of that equal sign by 4. So that gives me y equals 4. So if I plug that back in, 7 times 4 is equal to 28. Minus 3 times 4 is 12. And 28 minus 12 does give me 16. And that was my goal for this problem. So I know that I have done that problem correctly. All right. My challenge to you for this one is to try 5 and 6 on your own and just see what you can come up with. And of course, I will walk through them. So once you have it written down, pause the video and solve the problem. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at what you did. So one thing that I notice here is that the variables in this case are not all on one side of the equal sign. I notice that there is a plain 2 here, and there aren't any plain numbers on the right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is actually move that 3k by subtracting it. And by doing that, that creates a 0 pair with the 3k and the minus 3k, so they are gone. And I know then on that right-hand side, it gives me 5k minus 3k to give me 2, and I bring the 2 down. And again, just like the first 4 problems, we've got it down to one last step. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to give me k equals 1. To check, 2 plus 3 times 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 plus 3 does give me 5. And then 5 times 1 is 5. So I know that both sides are the same. So what did you do with number 6? Number 6 is a little different than the first 5. Wondering how many of you recognized that you actually needed to get rid of this dividing by 8 first in this case. And I'm going to actually do that. This is my multiplication. I'm going to actually do that by multiplying both sides by 8. If we had known what the value of a was, we could add 7 and then divide by 8, but we have to work backwards. So I need to make that a giant 1 by multiplying both sides by 8. So on the left-hand side, that gives me this a plus 7. And on the right-hand side, that does give me 40. Now in this case, what makes this one different, our last step is actually not multiplying or dividing, it's actually subtraction. So I need to subtract 7 from both sides to make sure that a is by itself. And so that gives me that answer of a equals 33. All right, folks, I've got one last example for you. This one is very similar to number 6. The only difference here with number 6 is that the fraction or the division is a part of this coefficient or this number next to j. So I'm wondering, what do you think you're going to do first in this one? Because it's not exactly the same as what we did in number 6. What do you think? So if you said that I need to add 25 to both sides, you are absolutely correct. We need that 25 to cancel out and make a 0 pair. So I'm going to add that 25 to both sides. And then on the left-hand side, that leaves me with this 23j equals 140. Now, what we've done here is we've gotten to the same point as to most of the equations, 1 through 5, in this example, to where now all we have left to do is to divide by 2/3. Now, to use your calculator or to enter this on your calculator, you're going to type in the 140 and then divide. And then you're going to do 2 divided by 3. And notice I'm putting the 2 divided by 3 in parentheses. So what I'm telling the calculator to do, it's going to convert 2/3 into that decimal, and then it's going to do 140 divided by whatever that decimal is. And when you do that, you are going to get that answer of 210. So I know it's a lot of examples. We wanted to make sure that you had one kind of every type to look at and refer to as you're working on your assignment. And before you start your assignment for today's closure, I would like you to think about this. So today's lesson talked about solving two-step equations. What was different in today's lesson from what we did in the one-step equation lesson? So take a moment and write that down on your paper. And then when you're finished, you're going to head over to Schoology and find that Lesson 2 folder where you will find today's worksheet. And on today's worksheet, you will see quite a few problems to do, but you can choose any 8 problems on that worksheet to do. You do not need to do all of them. And we do need you to make sure that you're showing all of your work so that if you get something wrong, we can help you figure out where your mistakes are coming from. So again, head on over to that Lesson 2 folder for your Solving Two-Step Equations assignment.